Hi guys, I'll show you how to make your thumbnails look better. Your version needs to be 1.21.11 and also requires Sodium, NPC Studio, Iris, and Fabrishot for this to work. Change Sodium's version to this specific version since Iris shaders is outdated, and get white entity mask and normal map shaders. Lastly, go to .minecraft folder, then config, open Fabrishot.properties with Notepad, then change the height to 720 while width should be 1280. Save it and head over to Minecraft. Now that you're in Minecraft, head over to single player and you can either create a new world or you can join your pre-existing ones to use that for any sceneries. I already have a world over here. Just make sure that you set yours to creative. Now I already have myself this little hill over here. What you do is you go over to your inventory, click this little arrow over here, click on the NPC wand and NPC camera, and let's start. First thing you will do is you will head over to your camera, right click, and it will create a new camera scene. Secondly, you can head over to NPC wand, camera, make sure you have your camera selected, and you can press view, or alternatively you can also press H in your keybind. So what I'm just gonna do is quickly adjust angle. Once you're done with that, just press H to exit, and what you do is you head over to your NPC wand and then right click to create a new NPC. To rotate your camera, you just have to hold middle mouse, and then to change it in a position, you just hold shift and then middle mouse as well. Scrolling should be the same as well. Then R is to rotate, which you can rotate anyhow. If you make a mistake right here, you can either press Ctrl Z, or if you still have it active, you can just press right click. Then to rotate in a specific axis, which is X, Y, or Z, remember that Y is green, X is red, and Z is blue. So for me, I'm just going to rotate R, Y, and to rotate it globally, I will press R, X, and another X. Then to move in a position, all you just do is press G, and it should be the same thing for the angles. Position your camera however you like. Once you're done, head over to the skin section over here, press tools. Then you can either import your skin from folder if you have it saved locally, or you can download it online. So for me, I'm just going to press download skin by username. Then for this, I'm just going to Steve, for example. Then if you want to move its arms or legs, you just head over to the pose section and then select any of these, and it should be the same thing. If you want to add an item, what you do is you head over to inventory under display. Then you just head over to this little sword icon over here, which is the main hand. Click it, and then you'll be greeted with an inventory. Search for the item you like, and then once you selected it, just drag it over here, and now it should do the thing. Once you're happy with your position, just head over to the camera section, click on the batch screenshots, make sure that your source is selected on camera, and then click on Fabrishot over here, which will set the resolution. Make sure all of these are disabled except for white entity mask 1.5, and then click white entity mask cutout over here. Head over to NPC groups, make sure both of those are selected. Right click on the background and make sure that you have it on your preferred shader. Mine is complementary reimagine, and nothing else. Then over to Steve, make sure that your preferred shader is also enabled, and normal map shaders. Once you're done, click run, confirm, and run. Now you just wait. Once you're finished, just close out of Minecraft, head over to your preferred browser, then search for photopea.com. Then click on new project, head over to your YouTube thumbnail, and make sure the background is set to transparent. Name yours however you like, then press create. On the top left, click file, open and place, then go over to where your files are. Once you open all three, what you do is you deactivate this so you can see what this looks like. And the first thing I'm going to do is head over to image, adjustment, brightness and contrast, and turn it down a little bit. And one more quick thing, make sure that if you select your Steve over here, let me actually rename it, you right click on the Steve, then head over to rasterize. What this does is that you can change some parts of the adjustments with a selection. One more thing I'd like to do is go over to hue and saturation and change the saturation to be a little bit more contrasted. Once you're happy with your result, enable Steve, and the first thing we're gonna do is guess where the light is coming from. So apparently, according to the shadows, is coming from this side. So what I would do is I would toggle the normal, head over to magic wand, make sure that contiguous is enabled, then select the parts that should be brighter. Once you've selected them, all you just do is deactivate the normal, select Steve, go over to image, adjustments, brightness and contrast, and just make this a little bit more brighter with slightly bit of contrast. And then for the saturation, just going to make this pop a little bit more. Then for the other sides, like for example his face, his torso, the fish, just head over to your normal, select your wand, and then select any of these that should be darker. Once you selected them, deactivate the normal, head over to Steve, change the image adjustments in brightness and contrast to be a little bit darker and a little bit more contrasted. Once you're done, make sure you select Steve again, head over to layer style, then select drop shadow just down here, remove global angle and change it to where the sun is coming from. Then I want this fish to be a little bit brighter. So what I'll do is I'll head over to the normal, head over to magic wand, make sure contiguous is turned on, and then select the fish, deactivate it, select Steve, head over to image, adjustments, brightness and contrast, and I will just make this a little bit brighter and more saturated. The next thing we'll do is we will start shading it. So head over to your normal, use your magic wand, and then select some faces. For me, that's going to be Steve face, and the hat, the torso, all of those sorts of stuff. Once you've selected them, make sure you go back to Steve again, over to brush. Then what you do is you go over to this circle with a number 15 on it, change the size to be slightly larger, about 140 should be good, and then turn the hardness all the way down. Then in the blend mode, change it to soft light. Then in this little arrow, make sure that white is the first thing, then just sort of start shading. Then to make the other side darker, click this little arrow again, head over to soft light, change it to overlay, and you can also turn down the opacity a little bit. Then just sort of shade the sides that you want it to be darker. Then sort of just do the rest for all of your other colors. Then for the lighter areas, such as this, make sure to go back to your normal. You can also deactivate it so you can see your actual Steve. Then just select the sides that you think should be a little bit more darker. For something like skin tones, you should change the blend mode to multiply, but you should also change the opacity a little bit down so it doesn't turn out very dark. Then once you're done with your shading, what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate Steve. So Ctrl C and Ctrl V. Name this highlight. Make sure to disable the drop shadow effect. However, head over to effects and then change the color overlay to be completely white. Then over to blend mode, change it to color dodge, then change the opacity to be a little bit smaller. Then what you're going to do is you're going to free transform. So right click, free transform, use your arrow keys to make it move towards the sun. Once you're done, hold Control and then click on Steve. Make sure it's on the thumbnail and not the name itself. Then just press delete. Then what you do is you just deselect it, free transform again, and then use the arrow keys to go back to its original spot. Once you're done, you'll see that there might be some unnecessary parts like this one over here. You can just select it and then press delete. Same thing probably goes for here and here too. Then finally use the eraser tool, change the size to be a little bit bigger and then the hardness to be absolutely 0. Then change the opacity to be faintly small. Then just fade out some of the end sides. Then finally, you can just make some quick final adjustments. Once you're done, you can just save it as PSD, then file, export as PNG.